Hi, hello. It is Josh Bowe, one of the many editors over at MavsMoneyball.com and co-host of Pod Maverick. We are here with another After Dark edition after the Mavericks lose to the Cavaliers 113-110. I am not joined by my normal co-host, and is usually the one who's leading these things, Kirk Anderson, as he has a newborn baby and he's allowed to miss some of these games as he and his wife handle a newborn baby. Someone no stranger to a newborn baby is fellow staffer and editor at MavsMoneyball.com, Doyle Rader. How's it going, Doyle?
Good, yeah. Not a stranger to what Kirk is going through. Yeah. I'm happy to step in when baby prevents him from doing so.
I know. I'm glad to have you. I think this is the first time we've done a pod together this season. You stepped in for me when I had similar. I couldn't make it for one of these pods, and you and Kirk got to talk. So I'm glad we're getting you on these podcasts a little bit. Glad you're able to help out. We appreciate having you.
Of course.
And what a great game to talk about. The Mavericks, the Mavericks Marvs. Your favorite term, your favorite version.
Incredible Marv's game. Incredible. Like, you couldn't have asked for a better way to start the new ownership.
Yeah, it really was a great omen that the Cuban sale got approved today, and the Mavericks fart away a 20-point lead against a Cleveland Cavaliers team that is missing three of its best four players: Donovan Mitchell, Evan Mobley, and Darius Garland. With Mitchell and Garland both out, with Mobley out, he's their defensive linchpin, but they've got some guys that can step up. They don't really have anyone that can fill up the production that Mitchell and Garland have, that Garland produce. So this was really just like a bad loss. Just so many reasons compounding on top of each other. Like, Cavs missing three of their best four players. You have a 20-point lead that gets you fart away. And then, they're going to Minnesota, the best team in the West, tomorrow night to play the Wolves on the road, second night of a back-to-back. So really, this was just a game. They not only could they just not lose this game, but they really should have won this game comfortably. Do you have any initial thoughts from this one?
Yeah, I mean, it was a game they needed to absolutely have just before going on a road trip. Even with those players out that you mentioned for the Cavaliers are still a pretty gritty team and have been winning. I think what they said during the broadcast, they've won 4 of their last 5. I'd have to double check that, but they've been able to grit out some wins. And, Jared Allen really kind of carried this team. Isaac Okoro, who I used to love watching in Summer League. That's when I first saw him. He couldn't score. He dropped 22 tonight. Karis LeVert looked like an all-star. So their guys stepped up as the Mavericks kind of just squandered the game away. They twiddled their thumbs. They couldn't hit a three, right? I think they went 14 at one point, missed consecutive threes before Seth Curry hit one. Seth was the only player on the Mavericks to really be able to knock anything down from outside. So the outside shooting really hurt this team because I thought they got some pretty decent looks and just from around the arc, but nothing was going down. Luka did Luka things, but was oddly held out for a good chunk of the fourth quarter as the Cavaliers made their the run that eventually gave them the lead. So I felt like there was a lot of things going on in the fourth that not just the poor shooting, but kind of some funky lineups and minutes played and combinations that contributed to the Cavs coming back. But yeah, also the Mavericks got absolutely blitzed on the glass. It was crazy.
Yeah, you can pick your point. Like we could talk about I feel like there's maybe like a hand, there's like a couple or three really just it just jumps out at you when you look at the box score, and when you were watching the game, it was really evident as well.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, the offensive rebounds, that's one of them. Cavaliers had 18, Mavericks had 7. Jared Allen had 23 rebounds. He had 9 offensive rebounds, so he alone had more offensive rebounds than the entire Mavericks team did, which is clearly not great. Second chance points weren't as awful as maybe it could have been. So the Mavericks almost got, I don't want to say they got lucky because they didn't grab any offensive rebounds, but if the Cavaliers took advantage of that even more so, it would not have been great. But even then, they hit a bunch of threes off those offensive rebounds. Because funny enough, looking at the game chart, Cleveland was 16 of 25 at the rim, which is 16 makes is not, I wouldn't call that good, but it's not as terrible as some of the Mavericks paint defense games in the last.
The Cavs only had 46 points in the paint. Dallas had 52, so they won that. Like a lot of these numbers like that, Dallas kind of ekes them out, if not beats them outright, except for bench scoring. It was really an odd kind of game. They lost in just a few categories, and those were the difference.
Yeah, and they just lost those categories so bad.
Horribly,
yeah, because also the offensive rebounds were bad, and they kind of tied it together because, like you said, they won the points in the paint because most of those offensive rebounds led to open threes, and the Cavaliers made 17 of 43 from three. I think this is last 4 or 5 games. Cavaliers are shooting 25% from three as a team, which makes sense. They don't have Garland, they don't have Mitchell. They've been winning these games with defense, and they definitely won this game with defense down the stretch. But this isn't a close game if the 3-point shooting follows season trends, because the Mavericks only made 10 of 37. They got mostly good looks throughout the night. Typically that's a Mavericks thing. They make 7 or 8 more 3-pointers than their opponent, and they kind of either blow them out or win a game maybe they shouldn't, because that 3-point discrepancy is real. And instead the Mavericks kind of got mavericked. This is what they do what they do to other teams is just being so good from the 3-point line that it doesn't matter if your rim defense stinks or you can't grab a rebound, because they're just going to make more threes than you. So if the Mavericks just made their average, if they made the threes at the rate that they normally make them, this is a 20-point lead at point, I think, in the first half, and then it was a double-digit lead in the second half. I mean, this might have been a lead so big if they just made their shots that you don't even have to worry about a fourth quarter comeback, because they're up 25 with 5 minutes left instead of being up 9 or whatever it was. So I think that's we could talk about the late game stuff next if you want, but the 3-point shot difference I felt was that's the game from a sky high broader view.
Oh yeah, sure. I mean, that's the thing that stands out the most. When you look at that first half, Seth Curry, I think, hit a shot to put up, I don't remember how much he put the Mavs up by, but the Cavaliers immediately called a timeout. Seth was hot, he was rolling. It looked like it was just going to be, one of those games where the Mavs just walk all over them, run them out of the gym. And, that just wasn't the case, because they didn't find that in the second half of the game, that type of shooting. The game got down to 4 at one point before the Mavericks were able to push back up to 10 in the second half. But yeah, everything after the second quarter kind of fell apart for them. Just the shot just was not falling, and they, like you said, they need that shot to fall, because that's how they really take teams apart.
Yeah, and then the rebounding didn't help, and then Ooh, the offensive execution down the stretch didn't help as well. The clutch time was not good. It's been good for the Mavericks all season. They were 10-2 in clutch games entering tonight, but they traveled back in time to last season in the clutch, where they lost 29 clutch games last season. And it was all the stuff that we talk about last season and even before that. Like, it was the non-existent play calling. It was the heavy reliance on Luka to do everything. It was role players then missing the shots that Luka created for them. It was the inability to get stops when they needed. It was everything. And it was, I think the Mavericks from the 6-minute mark to the 1-minute mark didn't score any points at all. Cleveland went on a 15-0 run in that stretch, and they took the lead, and they never even gave it back once they took the lead again.
I think the Mavs missed, 10 straight shots in that time.
It was terrible.
The ball was not really moving. I think that's when Luka came back in during that stretch, and he missed his first 3 shots. 2 of them were elbow jumpers, basically, or from the free throw line, and just didn't look great. Kind of bricked both of them because he had been sitting for a long time at that point. I don't remember when he checked out, but you noted it during the game, and I was like, oh yeah, he's been kind of gone for a while, and then he finally came back in, and it was a little too late at that point. They couldn't find anything, as they scrambled to try and make a miraculous to come back to salvage the game. It just wasn't there. Luka hit that crazy 3 to give that little glimmer of Luka magic hope, but it was not to be. It was, the last possession was awful. Just it was comically bad. It was shades of some of the worst things you saw last season. Even in the tanking games, it looked like that.
Yeah, we can talk about that last play now. It was everything you said. It was everything from last season. Just not really sure what the plan was. So to reset, Mavericks, like you said, Luka makes a crazy shot, gets the lead down to 3. Cavaliers missed 2 straight free throws. Mavs called timeout with about 8 seconds left to basically tie the game to send it in overtime. And Derek Lively's on the floor. And I think everyone loves the Mavs rookie center. Thinks he's a crucial part of this team winning the games that they've won so far this season. But he's not a 3-point shooter. He's not a threat anywhere outside of the paint for the most part. And the Mavericks left him in. And before Luka got out of the ball, it's that's interesting, because Jared Allen was still on the floor. And you're basically, I'm like, well, why would Allen guard Lively at all? If Lively scores a layup with 5 seconds left, the game's basically over from that point, because even if the Cavs miss more free throws, you're basically asking the Mavericks, and then I think the Mavericks are out of timeouts. So they'd have to go full court to tie the game. So I was like, he's just going to double Luka when Luka gets the ball, and that's going to be it. And lo and behold, Mavericks inbound the ball, get it to Luka. Allen leaves Lively immediately, doubles Luka, and then Luka shovels it to Seth Curry, who gets his 3-point shot blocked at the buzzer. And I think what was really frustrating was not only the decision to leave Lively in, but there wasn't a plan. If you're going to leave Lively in, they need to do something with him, whether that's setting some off-ball screens or something. If he's going to be in the game and he's not a threat from 3, you need him to do something, because even if let's say Allen doubles Luka there where he did, if Lively sets a screen for Curry and sets a good screen with no one guarding Lively because Allen's doubling Luka, there's no one to switch or help on that off-ball screen. Instead, Lively just I'd have to rewatch it. I can't remember off the top of my head. Pretty sure Lively just stood around while Luka was getting doubled. And then Seth got a shot and a bad contested shot, and the game was over. So it's one thing to leave Lively on the floor, which I just strategically just don't agree with, to then not really use him in a way that gives you an advantage in that situation. It was doubling down. And instead it was just last season, throw the ball to Luka, hope he bails you out, which is pretty much how they lost every clutch game last season.
Yeah, it was a kind of confusing it was an incredibly confusing last sequence. And, some of the players that I think, may have, Grant Williams, I think, deserves a lot of a lot of the things that people say are probably justified about his role on the team right now, but maybe this is where you want to have him in the game instead of Lively. Instead of that whole run during the Cavaliers' push for the lead when he was the center with Josh Green on the floor. That lineup could not score. Josh Green, I did see, was one of the best plus minuses for the game. So just another weird little stat there, or at least for the Mavericks. But yeah, just instead of Lively, have another shooter out there, like, and get some shooters in the game when you're hemorrhaging the lead too. Like that was, so you don't get in that situation in the first place. So yeah, it was a confusing fourth, all because they couldn't hit shots, period. And then they just, I don't know what happened. I can't. I'm not there at the game. I'm here in my home. I'm not asking Jason Kidd questions very often, if ever, this year, because I have a small child too. But that was, at least they can forget it all, and that's probably what they're saying, that they're gonna, forget this one, watch some film, be ready tomorrow night. Standard things, and they need to be. It's the best team in the West. They've got their work cut out for them, especially with still some players hobbled by injuries, and I know Luka's dealing with something, and he looked like he was a little hobbled to start the game. So we'll see if he's able to go tomorrow too.
Yeah, we'll see. It almost felt like they were gonna, he was questionable coming into this game, so it was curious to see which game are they going to rest him, because they probably needed to give him a night off. With the back-to-back and his insane usage this season. As I put up on our stream right now, I said I wasn't sure what Lively was doing, and our friend on Twitter, Lively was under the hoop. So that just goes to show you, they didn't really have a plan for him, I don't think, unless Lively didn't adhere to the plan. But I'm going to not give this coaching staff the benefit of the doubt when it comes to messing up late game situations. You made a interesting point too. Like, you're like, Grant should probably be in the game for that last possession. And it's funny. It's like, okay, that's when maybe he should have been in. And then he was in, but he was in before that, and Lively was out when Cleveland's making this comeback and they're playing a small ball line. It was swap them. Yeah, swap them. Exactly. It was very bizarre. And like you said, Grant was bad. I've been willing to give Grant Williams some time. I know you've had some hotter takes in Slack about Grant Williams, but like, he's coming off the bench now, and it's not looking any better. 4 points in 26 minutes, 0-4 from 3. He did get 6 rebounds, which was nice.
I can't knock him for that. 6 rebounds is good. But the rest of it's not.
Yeah, I mean, he just can't buy a bucket right now. He can't shoot, and the thing about his shooting, I think, is it's not only that he's missing like all of his threes. He's shooting 32% in the month of December. That's before tonight, so it might be closer to 31. But he's at 32% from 3 the month of December. None of his shots look confident. Like, I mean, it's like his form looks a little like, it looks like he's almost pushing the ball towards the rim. Like, when he's letting it go, there's no part of me that feels like those shots are going in before the ball even reaches the hoop, which is like really concerning part of it.
It looks like me at the 3-point line. That's not good. You don't want to see that.
Yeah, me too. I was not a shooter in high school.
No, I was a center. I did not shoot from outside. It's funny though, because I think it was the game before Christmas. I remember like looking at the the post game thing that the Mavericks send out, and it was like Grant Williams knocked down 4 or more threes in that game. And that was a career high for him in his season. It was like his 4th or 5th game knocking down 4 or more threes, and he'd never done that before in his NBA career, like not with the Celtics or anything. And it's like, it's just like those weird little outlier stats that he accumulates throughout the season. Like when you take it as a whole, they kind of like clump in there and make it not look as bad. But he has stretches where it's just bad. Like, when was the last time, I was looking at this earlier. It had been a month or so since he had, and this was earlier in the month. I don't remember if he's done it since then. But it had been a month, like early November, since he had back-to-back double-digit scoring games. Like, and his scoring games have just been anywhere from like 2 to like 9, and then like he'll have like a 19, and then it'll be like 7, and it's just that one throws it all off to make the averages look a little better than they probably really should be. And then those first 7 games of the season are doing a lot of heavy lifting right now for his averages, because it's just not good. And like, it could be a slump. It could be like, Reggie Bullock back when he was on the team, and how he just did not play well until like after the All-Star break, and then he just caught fire. Maybe that's what's going to happen. But I had my questions about Grant coming in to this season because he got ran off the floor in the playoffs last year. I wanted him to get rebounds, which is why I can't be mad at that. That's something I believe I said on this very podcast with Kirk at one point. So he did that, but just, the bench is where he needs to be for the moment. And as streaky as Tim Hardaway is, he's a scorer. You need him out there. He's not a great defender, but he puts his body out there. He draws charges. He plays good basketball, and he plays with effort. And the shot doesn't always go in. Like tonight, it was pretty not great.
Well, speaking of someone not shooting the ball well, I mean, he's also about around 32% from 3 for the month of December. So not great, but at least with Tim, he somehow manages to get himself into double-digit scoring because he kind of just shoots his way through it.
It's
with Grant,
a miracle.
Kind of like he just doesn't shoot sometimes,
right?
Which I don't know which is worse, but at least with Tim, you're getting some production somewhere.
When I looked at the box score after the game, because I wasn't checking it a whole lot during the game, to see that Hardaway finished with 14 points despite shooting so horribly, I was blown away that he was able to do that. Like,
he lets it rip, man. He just keeps going. He doesn't stop.
14 points on 13 shots. I mean, look, that's how he scored 14 is incredible. That's a testament to his gunner mentality.
It really is. So we're about 23 minutes in. So we're going to do the thing that Kirk does. I'm going to try to do it as well, where I say everyone that is watching currently right now, whether it's on YouTube or I guess this is going live on Twitter also. If you're watching, please like the feed, like the stream, subscribe to our channel. If you are listening to the audio only podcast, please subscribe to us wherever you listen to your podcasts. I am back with another update on Apple Podcast issue, and I have no update. Kirk is still working on it. I mean, we've got people from our partners at Blue Wire who help us. We're part of their podcast network. They're helping us. Our old, bosses at Vox are helping us. Kirk is getting Apple support dragged into this, and we just haven't been able to get to a solution yet. So we apologize that the podcast isn't really updating in your Apple apps, but most other podcast apps, you should be able to see us: YouTube Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify. I think those are all updating okay. So we appreciate it. We know that's there's a lot of freaking iPhone users out there. And we know that's like where a majority of our listeners come from. So we apologize that it's not doing that. But hey, if you're watching on YouTube, please like us, subscribe, listen. And if you're watching us live, we're going to take a very, very, very quick break so we can shove in an ad break for our sponsors. If you're listening to the audio only feed, we're just going to take a short break, and on the other end of it, we'll wrap a button on this, pretty disappointing game for the Mavericks. So we'll be right back. Okay, we are back. Again, Mavericks drop a disappointing heartbreaker, 113-110, the Cleveland Cavaliers. They had a 20-point lead, went away. They had a 9-point lead with 6 minutes left. That went away. And they lose a game they should have won for a variety of reasons that we discussed in the first half of the show. So something I want to talk about before we leave or as we start, winding down. Um, we've talked about the clutch offense and defense and how they kind of lost the game toward the end. I think it's curious. We didn't really talk. I mean, we kind of danced around it a little bit because Luka wasn't great in the second half. He had 20 points in the first quarter, finished with 39. Percentages were still okay. 14 to 29 is not bad. 3 of 10 from three, which has been low for him. Only 6 assists, 5 turnovers. The 6 assists, only 6 assists was mainly because no one else could make a shot. But he didn't, he normally sits the start of the fourth quarter, but it's only for, especially if they need him, it's only for maybe a couple minutes. He's usually back in around the 9 or 8 minute mark, most, at the latest, maybe 7 minute mark. The Mavericks were holding their head above water. I believe they entered the fourth quarter with an 8-point lead. I think it was an 8-point lead. And then with 6 minutes left, timeouts called. Luka gets put back on the floor. The Mavericks have a 9-point lead. So they outscored the Cavs to start the fourth quarter for the first 6 minutes or so by 1 point. And I think that's what led to how long Luka stayed out. Because I think Kidd was like, hey, we've got a game tomorrow night. If we can keep Luka under 40 minutes, let's ride this bench unit for a little bit longer than we normally do. We're keeping our head above water. We still got, it's still a double, multi-possession game. Why not? But then Luka came back and looked terrible. I don't, not to mince words here, but he did not look great. I think he scored 5 points in the final 6 minutes. He had that 3-pointer. Then he had, like a layup, a runner in the paint. And that was it. And he had 2 turnovers, missed some shots. Team didn't look great when he came back in. And my theory is, I wonder if he sat on the bench too long and that maybe messed up his rhythm. I mean, pro athletes are notoriously, habitual and have to keep to their schedule. It's kind of how they maintain their peak performance by repetition and doing the same things over and over again. I wonder, do you think he sat too long? But I don't even want to blame the coaches for it because they kind of they were trying to get him some extra rest, but it just almost feels like that kind of backfired on him.
Yeah, and that's something, I don't remember who said it, but someone said it, from the broadcast crew. They mentioned that he got stiff, Yeah, he was trying to work out the stiffness when he came back in. So, I think they did need to bring him back in, with the Cavaliers on the run that they made. When you look at it, they outscored the Mavericks 31-20 in the fourth quarter. He needed to check back in sooner than he did. The alarm bells were sounding long before he came back in. And that, I think, to your point, I think that's probably exactly what they were trying to do, was trying to get him some more rest, to hope that the units they threw out there could buy him some more time, if not to have him completely sit out the rest of the game entirely, because of tomorrow night. If he was questionable beforehand this game, I don't remember what the exact injury was, something with his left leg, and they want him to go tomorrow, then yeah, I could see them wanting to get as much rest as possible. But that wasn't the case because they couldn't hit shots, squandered a lead. And he came back in too late. No one else was really doing anything outside of Seth Curry, and Seth Curry really wasn't doing anything all that impressive in the second half of the game. It was Luka. They needed him. They needed him to run the offense because the offense was kind of stagnant. the guys that normally step up were okay, but they just again couldn't hit outside shots. They needed their guy back in.
Yeah, you talked about the guys that normally step up were not as good as they usually are, and I think you can kind of point to Derek Jones Jr., Dante Exum. Exum was actually okay. He had 13 points on 8 shots, 6 assists, 3 steals. Derek Jones Jr. played a really good defensive game. He had a steal. He had 3 blocks. One of
Yeah,
them
he
on
had
Jared
some
Allen at the
crazy
end.
blocks. Yeah.
Yeah, still managed to score 12 points, but he shot 5 of 13 from the floor, 0 of 4 from 3. In the second half, he kind of came back down to earth because he was on a crazy stretch where he was like, I mean, he was driving the ball and finishing almost everything at the rim. That Phoenix game, he had
He
20
had a
plus
crazy
points.
weird alley oop in this one. So
Yeah,
outside of his 3-point shooting, I think you take away those 4 shots, he's fine. But that's a huge 4 shots to miss, honestly.
yeah, for sure. It just kind of ties into they just couldn't make their open threes because Jones is the one. These role players, Jones, Exum, even maybe Hardaway, Seth, Grant, like it's not like they're taking contested threes. Like these are the
No,
guys that are shooting threes, spotting up around Luka. Luka's doing the creating. So yeah, they were probably bound to run into one of these games. It's just unfortunate that it happens when you get a 20-point lead and you're playing the Timberwolves on the second night of a back-to-back. Like it's just the timing of this loss is just not ideal. Another thing I wanted to hit on, Josh Green, who hasn't played in weeks. His last game was the first of the month, December 1st, against the Memphis Grizzlies. So he basically hasn't played for practically an entire month. Had a right elbow sprain, which is the same injury he had last season when he also missed like about 3 or 4 weeks, which is kind of odd. I don't see a lot of elbow sprains in the NBA, but I don't know what it is, but he had them. Came back, played 21 minutes off the bench, 2 points, 5 assists, 3 rebounds, 2 steals. It's kind of like the quintessential like Josh Green game, where like he didn't
plus
score.
12. Yeah.
Yeah, plus 12, but misses 3 of the 4 shots he takes, misses both of his threes, but has 5 assists, has no 1 turnover, 2 steals. Like just finding a way to make things happen even when he's just not putting the ball in the basket. I did appreciate like just having him on the floor instead of playing like a Markieff Morris or even Omax Prosper or AJ Lawson, who all 3 of those guys have had some moments lately when Green and Max Kleba have been out. Especially Prosper had a 20-point game while Green was out. Lawson's had a couple of nice games as well. But like, Green is supposed to be a key contributor. Like if Prosper and Lawson are out playing him, then something's gone terribly wrong. Like you want to see Green on the floor and contributing. And I thought, hey, 1 of 4 from the floor, 2 points. Not great considering he hasn't been shooting the ball well all season, but he had 5 assists, was moving the ball well. I thought defensively played pretty well considering I think defense has been one of his issues this season, where I think he's taken a bit of a step back. I thought he played pretty aggressively. Again, it's not like the Cavaliers are an offensive juggernaut without Garland and Mitchell, but I thought he was all right. I mean, what do you think?
I mean, he came up with a huge air ball for the Mavs. So
He did. I
that's
know
when
that
I
was
kind of
unfortunate.
knew. That's when I kind of knew what was about to happen in the game. Yeah, I mean, I didn't even notice the 5 assists. I mean, you want that from him, right? Like
No, that's his thing. He can pass.
that's kind of what you want him to do, but you also kind of want him to have more than 2 points.
I know that's the give and take. That's the Josh Green cycle that we're on, especially this season where he's been a little bit more inconsistent. So, yeah, that was unfortunate. I'm trying to think of any other storylines we want to talk about. Williams has come off the bench. This is the 2nd straight game. He's basically playing backup 5. Like Powell played 5 minutes. No Rashawn Holmes. No Jaden Hardy, who might have played himself out of the rotation, I think, over the last couple of games. So not surprising that he got the DNP CD. But otherwise, just, I don't know. Last season's Mavs came back to haunt them in a big way tonight.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised Powell doesn't get more run as the backup 5 right now. Just we know what he gives you, but he also gives you really good advanced stats when it comes to how he works with Luka and things like that. And then as the role man, like he just kind of opens things up for this team. He's not going to go get you 10 and 10 every night, right? But he does things that matter and that help this team, and things that, frankly, Grant Williams as the 5 just can't give you. So,
yeah, I feel like you're going to probably get some death threats on Twitter for defending the name Dwight Powell in
I
the
don't
public
know.
space, but yeah, I don't know.
If they've been following me for long enough, they know that I've been there too, saying the bad things. So
yeah, I don't really know what they're doing with the bench. I mean, they're just trying to mix it up because it's just been a little bit. It's been tough with all the injuries. I mean, they need Maxey back. Green back helps a lot. They need Kyrie back so they can maybe settle some things a little bit better. But
it's been a mess of a rotation. I don't think they've done a great job of figuring it out. Figuring out Exum and moving him into the starting lineup, I think, is a really smart thing for them to do. But the rest of it has just not been a coherent strategy. It's like you said, Markieff Morris one game. It's Rashawn Holmes another game. And I feel like they're just throwing stuff at walls rather than trying to really see what lineups are the most effective and what they can go with. But hey, it's not even January yet. We're there in a few days, but I don't think this team is really interested right now in figuring out those specifics.
They're just trying to get through it. They're just trying to survive until Kyrie's back, until Maxey's back, who we don't really know on either of those. I think Kyrie's getting closer, but they haven't really given a date or a timetable. They didn't really give one for Green either. Like he just, I don't remember anyone saying if he was practicing leading up to this, and he just, was questionable, and then he's playing. So that might happen for Kyrie and Maxey too. They just pop up on the report that they're going to play one day. So
right,
we'll see.
Kid's not a doctor, so how would he know?
I know, how would he? It's impossible to know. He's just a bystander in all this.
Right, he's just watching like the rest of us.
Exactly. I think I'm taked out. I don't know what else I wanted to talk about with this game. Doyle, you got anything else, or do you want to get out of here? This game didn't deserve it.
No, we gave it more than it needed, and that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. So I'm okay with getting out of here. Again, Mavericks lose 113 to 110. Oh, boy, really bad loss. We'll see where we're at tomorrow. I should be on the podcast. I think Kirk will be back. We'll see. Again, we got a lot of Doyle and Kirk or I got newborns in the house. I've got a 2.5-year-old. Like, you can't predict the future. So who knows what tomorrow's going to bring, but I anticipate it'll be myself and Kirk back in our normal roles tomorrow night after the game against Minnesota Timberwolves. So we appreciate everyone sticking through it. I know our podcast schedule has been kind of weird. I think I did like 2 in a row without Kirk, and then Kirk did 1 without me, and now we're doing another one without Kirk. And that's just the way things go with real life. This is our side gigs for everyone here for the most part. So, we do what we can, and we always appreciate the kind comments. You guys leave great comments every single live stream. We really appreciate that. It motivates us to keep going. So thanks again. We're going to close shop here. Again, Mavericks lose to the Cleveland Cavaliers 113-110. Mavericks drop to 18-13. They play the Minnesota Timberwolves tomorrow night. We will talk to you then. For Pod Maverick, it's Josh Bowe, Doyle Rader. Thanks for joining me tonight. Stepping in, pitch hitting for Kirk, and we'll talk to you guys later.